Well, this is China's big re-emergence on the global stage after the zero COVID era. And it's also a moment when lending to Africa is starting to creep back up. So it's really intensifying its relationships across the global south, and Africa is at the center of that.
How have Beijing's ties with African nations evolved over recent years, and where are we seeing the most development?
We're seeing a lot more response to African demands, particularly around cooperation on green energy and data connectivity, and also a greater focus on development and peace and security. So I think what the Africans really want is greater Chinese involvement in industrialization, and that also looks like it's increasing.
But has the exchange been relatively equal or quite one-sided, do you think?
It depends a lot on the specific country, with some countries maintaining a trade deficit with China, others a big trade surplus. In general, some countries with a lot of critical minerals are doing a lot of business with China, but increasingly China is also focusing on political engagement throughout the entire continent.
Oh, what do you think China's end goal is in Africa?
I think China is trying to make space for itself in the world, and building a coalition of partners across the global south, and where its ideas on development and so on are, kind of will have a lot of influence. And I think that is particularly true in Africa. And I think that relationship is getting quite strong.
How do African nations view this, and do they see that goal, share that goal? What do they want out of continued ties with China?
I think in a lot of cases, African countries see China as one of their few viable options for partnership. And they're particularly interested in green energy and green industrialization. With a lot of other like traditional partners to them, that is not very high on the priority list. And China happens to bring really massive capability, particularly in green energy, to the table, as well as a willingness to engage with them on their terms. So in a lot of ways, China is proving itself a unique partner in the world to Africa.
How does China's influence in Africa compare to other global players, particularly from the West?
Well, China's to a certain extent a newcomer in Africa, and it's acting in a context that was largely created by the West's relationship with Africa. So in that sense, I think China's challenge of norms, or China's kind of reinvention of the relationship, I think also reflects a kind of a stagnancy in the relationship between the West and Africa, although Western actors are moving forward now with more infrastructure projects and so on. But a lot of them are at the announcement stage, so we're not really sure what they're gonna prove on the ground.
And just finally, how important is Africa to China from a strategic point of view, as Beijing, as you said, looks to increase its dominance globally?
Well, it's increasingly looking at creating a community. So, for example, Africa's consensus from Africa and the UN, for example, means a lot to China. It is also it's one overseas military base is also in Africa. So it has this kind of built-in strategic relationship with the continent that I think Africa itself would like to increase.
Dr. Cobus van Standen, great to get your views. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.